pictures bringing me out the dark. Finally, I can see you crystal clear. Go ahead and sell me out and I'll lay your shit bare. See?
Distinguished guests, please take your seats. 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 Please welcome the Acting Secretary of the Department of Housing and Urban Development, Adrian Todman.
Everyone hear me? All right, good afternoon, NAACP. It is good to be here with you this afternoon. You know, when I was a little girl, I used to love superhero movies. I loved watching Superman and Wonder Woman. They always made everything right at the end. I enjoyed seeing the good guys beat the bad guys, right over wrong, light over darkness. But then I grew up and became a grown woman. And I realized that superheroes, real superheroes, don't wear capes and have invisible airplanes. Heroes are the people like NAACP who fought for our rights and access to schools, access to better housing, and access to jobs. That's the work of real heroes. And it's this formidable organization that made it so that a young girl, a young Adrian, who was the first in her immediate family to go to college, to have the opportunity to stand here before you right now. You did that. So I want to thank you for helping my family and, quite frankly, generations of Black families across the country who are better off because of your work. And I want to thank President Johnson for continuing the fight. But look, here's what I know. I know you can't do this hero's work alone. I know that doing the right thing is a team sport. And I'm proud to be a member of a team, the Biden-Harris administration, that understands right from wrong and what needs to get done. And at HUD, we are doing our part. In just the past couple years, we've helped 250,000 Black families buy a home. We've helped thousands of Black families keep their homes when times got hard. We provided down payment assistance to help folks who may not have family and friends to rely on. In fact, right here in this state, HUD's housing counseling team is serving as founding members for a new initiative with the goal of helping 25,000 Black families buy their home. And let's hear it for that. And we're seeing progress. The homeownership gap between white folk and Black folk during this administration has been reduced by 13%. We know there's work to do, but we're on the right path. We've provided more support for renters to pay their rent. We've sent $50 billion to communities, and we've provided more rental vouchers for low-income folks who just need a fair shot. We've given local leaders historic levels of funding to help our homeless brothers and sisters find shelter. And I'm seeing our homeless numbers go down in different communities across the country, but I know we have work to do. We have work to do. Our grandparents, our sisters and brothers and cousins on the street need our help. HUD has provided millions of dollars to HBCUs to study and research ways that we can improve the housing condition of Black people across this country. And that's money well spent. And we are fighting appraisal bias. You know, we should not have to, listen to me, we should not have to take down pictures of our grandparents, pictures of our parents, pictures of our children's wedding, to make sure we're getting a fair appraisal of our house. Take our books down to make sure that we're getting a fair appraisal on our house. And let me tell you something, when our president and vice president heard that this was a thing, they turned to Marcia Fudge, a bad sister, a woman I'm proud to have called my boss, and then she retired on me. I know, I still talk to her about that. But they turned to Marcia Fudge and Susan Rice and said, we have to figure this out. And we have been on this journey to make sure that we're not just working to make sure people are empowered with information. People thought like that's what you did. That's not what you do. That was wrong. We gave them an avenue to figure out where they should go, but even more than that, we just settled a case with a group called the Appraisal Foundation to force them to diversify. This is an industry that is less than 1% of black and brown folk. And we said, you need to look like America. And that's what we're going to do. And this is just some of the work we're doing to really be about helping black and brown communities. We're getting housing built so people can live in places they can afford and neighborhoods with good schools. We're working to eliminate lead paint and other hazards from homes so our babies don't get sick. So when we talk about our collective legacy, about what drives us to action, what keeps us moving forward, it's not the people who think that this work doesn't matter. It's not the people who tell us that our communities are doomed. It's not the people who don't want us to build more housing for people who don't have a lot of money. It's not the people who think that this extreme heat that I know I'm feeling here, I'm sure you are too, that we're somehow this is in our imagination. What drives me and my colleagues is the generations of Americans to come. The legacy we're building requires us to ask ourselves, when we look back at this critical moment in history, what will people say of us? What will we be proud of? Look, my colleagues and I know that there is more work to do. And that's why today HUD has awarded $325 million to cities and towns across the country to help restore affordable housing, build new housing, and support small businesses. And that includes $50 million right here in Las Vegas. It's why our president is announcing actions today to help American people with their high rents, and why we're investing to build more affordable housing for us to rent and for us to buy. Folks, HUD remains committed to our communities. We remain committed to fairness. We remain committed to justice. And we are committed to people who just need a little bit of help to get by and just looking for a fair shot. We are making sure this country lives up to not just its ideals, but to building a legacy that has a home for everybody. Because we have come too far to turn back now. We need you to be all in, and I promise you, we are all in with you. Thank you, NAACP. Keep being the heroes that you are, and let's keep fighting together. Thank you.
Welcome to the stage next. Please welcome Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. Here's Kristen Clark.
Good afternoon. It is a privilege to be here today at the 115th NAACP National Convention. This convention's theme, All In, reminds us of the members of our movement who risked their lives and their freedom to advance the cause of justice. Thurgood Marshall narrowly escaped lynching. Dr. King assassinated. John Lewis beaten within an inch of his life. Medgar Edgars murdered. Countless others killed, beaten, and imprisoned. While I hope that none of us are ever asked to bear such risk, we should remember the sacrifices of those who came before us as we measure what all in means in today's fight for justice and what we must do to honor their legacy. We want to turn to some of the work that we are doing right now to honor that legacy at the U.S. Department of Justice. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the Fair Housing Act, the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Hate Crimes Prevention Act, and other federal laws give us an array of tools to fight discrimination and to safeguard our constitutional rights. And we use these tools every day to confront the injustices and inequities that flow from discrimination wherever we find them. One area of our work that remains a critical priority for the Justice Department is ensuring that law enforcement officials carry out their jobs lawfully and without bias. Our fight to ensure constitutional, fair, and non-discriminatory policing remains as urgent as ever. We have prosecuted officers who abused their power, including those tied to the tragic deaths of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Tyree Nichols in Memphis, and Breonna Taylor in Louisville. We have prosecuted 6 former officers who tortured and viciously abused 2 black men in Rankin County, Mississippi. This group called themselves the Goon Squad, and they carried out one of the most heinous acts of brutality that we have seen in this century. The lead defendant was sentenced to 40 years in prison. We have investigated law enforcement agencies engaged in a pattern or practice of conduct that violates the Constitution, including in Minneapolis, Louisville, Memphis, New York City, Louisiana, and Lexington, Mississippi. Just last month, we announced our findings that the city of Phoenix and its police department have engaged in a pattern or practice of unlawful conduct, including discrimination against Black, Hispanic, and Native American people when enforcing the law, and using excessive force, including deadly force. Wherever we find violations, we invite leaders, community members, and other stakeholders like the NAACP to work with us to chart a path to reform. Another core mission of the Justice Department is protecting the right to vote. Sadly, we can't ignore voter suppression laws that are spreading like poison ivy across the country. Discriminatory and burdensome restrictions on access to the ballot are undermining the rights of Black voters and voters of color. But that's not stopping us. We have filed suits across the country, including over 30 statements of interest in cases, because we believe that every eligible American should be able to exercise their voice in our democracy. We're also working to confront the unfortunate rise in hate crimes that we're seeing. We have charged more than 120 defendants with hate crimes in over 110 cases since January of 2021. Those numbers include the 3 men who tragically killed Ahmaud Arbery simply because he was Black. Those numbers include the defendant responsible for the heinous murder of 10 Black people at the Top supermarket in Buffalo, New York, and a defendant responsible for the tragic murder of a Black trans woman named Dime Doe in South Carolina. We do this work because racially motivated, white supremacist, anti-LGBTQI+, xenophobic, Islamophobic, Anti-Semitic acts of hatred and violence have no place in our democracy today. We're also ramping up the fight for environmental justice. We know that climate change disproportionately affects communities of color. For example, in 2021, the EPA found that Black Americans are 34% more likely to live in areas with unacceptably high projected increases in childhood asthma diagnoses. We have launched multiple investigations to ensure that no one's ability to live a healthy life is dictated by their race or their zip code. Last May, we secured a groundbreaking settlement to ensure that the residents of Lowndes County, Alabama have access to safe and effective septic and wastewater management systems. Whether we are talking about lead-laced water, illegal dumping, or exposure to raw sewage, we cannot tolerate these injustices in our communities today. And we're working to ensure that the gateways to opportunity and the ability to amass generational wealth are open to all. And we're doing this by working to end modern-day redlining. Our Combating Redlining initiative, launched with the leadership of Attorney General Merrick Garland, has brought more than $122 million in relief to communities all across the country. We're working to also address appraisal discrimination, which the Secretary just talked about a moment ago. Too many of our jails and prisons woefully mistreat incarcerated people, and we're also striving to end this. For example, in an investigation, we recently found that Parchman Prison in Mississippi failed to provide adequate mental health treatment, failed to take sufficient suicide prevention measures, subjected people to prolonged solitary confinement in egregious conditions, and more. We do this work because people do not surrender their rights at the jailhouse door. NAACP, this is just a small sample of our work. As I close, I want to note that through our efforts to protect civil rights, we recognize that an all-in fight for equality requires just that, all of us. Never has that been truer than it is right now. As one of the great founders of the NAACP once noted, W.E.B. Du Bois, now is the accepted time, not tomorrow, not some more convenient season. It is today that our best work can be done, and not some future day or future year. It is today that we fit ourselves for the greater usefulness of tomorrow. Today is the seed time. Now are the hours of work, and tomorrow comes the harvest. So NAACP, I promise you that the Justice Department, the People's Justice Department, will continue to stand alongside you and all those who work and fight for equal justice in our country. We will not give up. We will not wait for some more convenient season. We are all in now, and we will remain all in until we can reap the harvest. Thank you.
Next is a senior advisor to the President of the United States. Please welcome Stephen Benjamin.
That's some pretty cool walkout music, Congressman. I'm not sure what that was. I'm going to be very brief. I serve as senior advisor to the president. I run public engagement at the White House. My first real title was as president of the Youth and College Division of the South Carolina NAACP. As my parents, my Congressman Jim Carbonell will tell you that titles don't make leaders. Leaders are servants. When I think about, and I'm here, honestly, in my capacity, my friend Derek Johnson, who I met as a youth leader here, asked me to say some things on behalf of the incredible, diverse leadership that our president has assembled across the administration, but certainly at the White House. I think of the president's wisdom, and I think of my grandfather, Sam Benjamin. My grandfather, like many of your parents and others, was not an educated man. He wasn't a man of letters. He didn't go to college, get the degrees that we all have, but he was a Christian man. He often teach me and my brothers the lessons that we need to know to survive in life. He often go to the book of Joshua, chapter 24. He talked about how Joshua renewed the covenant at Shechem, how he assembled all the leaders, the elders, and the judges. He began to recount for them all the things that God had done for them up to that point. How he sent Moses and Aaron to deliver them from Egypt. How he delivered them in battle from the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Hittites and the Hivites and the Girgashites and the Jebusites and the children of Jericho, all the things that God had done for them up to that point. And he said, I've given you a land for which you did not toil, in cities you did not build, yet you live in them and eat from olive groves and vineyards that you did not plant. I've given you a land for which you did not toil, in cities you did not build, yet you live in them. That was my daddy's long way of saying, now, boy, no matter how smart you think you are, no matter how talented you might think you are, no matter how you may think that life has been served up for you in the silver platter, you didn't get here on your own. You didn't get here on your own. There's a price that you must pay for the opportunities you've been given in life. He made sure I knew about the people who marched for me and didn't know me, the people who cried for me, had no idea I'd ever exist, the people who kicked down the doors of the University of South Carolina in 1963 had no idea that Maggie and Sam's nappy-headed little boy would want to go there someday. People that died for me and didn't even know my name. So I'm here on behalf of all of us at the White House to say thank you, NAACP. Thank you for fighting the fight. Thank you for never stopping fighting the fight on behalf of all of us, paying our debt to the generations behind us and paying our debt forward for the generations yet unborn. Now, before I take my seat, I'm going to ask one more of my colleagues to come on out. Karine Jean-Pierre. Karine does an amazing job on behalf of the president every day, fighting the fight, telling the story on behalf of the American people. Wherever you are across the globe and you want to hear what's happening in the United States of America, if it's not our president or our vice president telling the story, it's Karine Jean-Pierre. She's not going to say anything today. We're in a different mode, but I just want to make sure you see her up close and personal, fighting the fight. Thank you. God bless you.
It's one thing to thrive, but it's another
Please welcome NAACP President and CEO, Derek Johnson.
They not like us. They not like us. They not like us.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, NAACP. It is a great day to share space with faces we know and those who we hope to know better. To our members, this convention is for you. From Arkansas to Alaska, the NAACP runs on people power because Black Americans know that our community is what carries us forward. To our friends at the National Bar Association, thank you for your decades of partnership and advocacy on behalf of the Black community in courthouses throughout the country. And to the members of the CBC, the conscience of the Congress, your leadership, your voice, your advocacy, your understanding of how public policy must improve the quality of life for African Americans, let me correct that, for Americans across the country has propelled this nation forward in perfecting democracy. 4 years ago, the world was forced to bear witness to a reality that may have been new to them, but was all too familiar to us. The death of George Floyd was a tragedy that is all too familiar to the countless others that have ripped apart Black families, communities across the country. George Floyd was not the first. And if we don't get police reform, it will not be the last. I'm sad to say. While the world reckoned with the reality of racism because many of them woke up one day and realized racism actually existed, although it often manifested itself in the form of unspeakable violence against Black people, whether it was Emmett Till or the church bombing of the 4 little girls in Birmingham and countless other stories. This time, some said they were prepared to change course. Some made empty promises, but the NAACP and legal advocates like Ben Crump, we took action. In 2020, our community worked together to empower one another, reminding each other that we have the ability to determine our destiny. The Black vote made a difference in 2020. And determined our destiny, we did, casting deciding ballots in the national, local, and state elections 4 years later. And there is much that has been accomplished by and for our community. But the history of this nation has taught us that not everyone shares the same investment in a progressive vision. For some, the notion of progress is seen as a threat to the imbalance of power that has allowed them to prosper while others are left in peril. The rejection of collective advancement and achievement has created division, pitting community against community, breeding extremist ideology that leaves no room for compromise or conversation. After the abolishment of slavery, it was Jim Crow. After the Civil Rights Act, it was the war on drugs. After the election of the first Black president, it was Make America Great Again. And now, after the racial reckoning that a black man lost his life, that all of us seen on social media platforms, on cable news, on broadcast news, the response is Project 2025. Over the past 4 years, we've worked to make education more equitable and accessible while widening the opportunity to increase economic output through organizing, advancing, and working with the current administration to cancel over $160 billion in student debt. Teachers, for the first time, qualifying for home ownership or increasing the quality of the housing stock that they are able to get for their families. However, Project 2025 not only seeks to revert that progress, but to dismantle the Department of Education that provides a pathway to opportunity for all Americans. But the planned assault on education does not stop there. Project 2025 seeks to return back the rights to states. For those of us who live in the South, we know when the dog whistle of state rights, what it truly means. And they're seeking through this states' rights approach to gut Title I, which would lead to the divestment of our public schools, hitting our community hardest. What would this nation be without a public education system for all children, providing quality education? And to those who have yet to see book bans in their states, Project 2025 plans to enact those bans nationwide. This is not a fictional concept. This is a 900-page manifesto that seeks to undermine progress, promote violence, inflict harm on our community. But they must know that in NAACP, we will be here for that fight. This election is not about candidate A versus candidate B or political party A or political party B. We are nonpartisan, but we are political as hell. And we know that this is a fight we must take on. So when people try to give you these false narratives or distract you, let's stay focused not on the people, but the policy priorities they represent, and vote for those who align themselves with what's in the best interest of our communities. And I can assure you, if you do that, it's in the best interest of America. The black community has saved democracy many times before, and we're being called on to save democracy once again. They must know that we are all in on making college more affordable for all. They should know that we are all in on fighting for a reality where black history is recognized because it is American history. I guess they don't know the history of the NAACP after being in this fight for 115 years. We will not turn back. We will continue the fight, and we will win this battle. We are battle tested. They need to know that we're all in on making equity a reality for all Americans. But we must recognize that this requires work on our end. While they may not be like us, we have to make them think like us. We have to band together the way they do. We must come together. We don't have a time for us versus us public fight. We only have time for a us for us saving of this democracy. to get the access we need in order to get the equity we deserve. Equal protection of the law isn't a concept, it's a guarantee that we must keep intact in our Constitution. Now, we've experienced that what we feel like to have we have experienced what it feels like to have the door shut in our face, or our voices stifled by divisive noise. We know that change is possible when doors are open, and how our culture shines through those doors when individuals like Steve Benjamin sits in the seat he's sitting, or Michael Regan sits in the seat that he's sitting, or Karine sits in the seat that she's sitting, because we will operate in excellence to ensure that this concept of democracy is protected, it grows, and is inclusive. We're not asking for perfection. We're asking for platforms that empower, not imprison. We're asking for leaders who don't shut the door on our face or drown out our rallying cries. And while there is a lot of work to be done, I am proud to welcome a leader who doesn't shut the door in our face, but turns up the volume when speaking. A leader who may not always get it right, but is all in on getting it done. And with that being said, I am honored to welcome the 46th President of the United States of America, Joseph R. Biden.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Folks, my name's Joe Biden, and I'm a lifetime member of the NAACP. And I am all in. My word, I am all in. President Johnson, thanks for the introduction and for your leadership, most of all for your friendship. And thanks to all the thousands of members of across America that are here. One of the most important organizations in our country. And a special thanks, I mean it sincerely, to the members of Congress who are here, including Nevada's own Stephen Horsford, chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. I don't know where he is, but I know he's out there. As so many members of the CBC members defending freedom, like Benny Thompson of Mississippi, chair of January 6th Committee. And the best friend anyone can have, Jim Clyburn of South Carolina. In case you didn't notice, Jim turned it around for me in 2020. Look, in June of 1947, Harry Truman became the first president to speak at this convention. And he was remembered for a lot of things. With the help of the NAACP, he desegregated the military. He laid the groundwork for the civil rights agenda. And he built upon President Kennedy by that. President Johnson, who signed the Civil Rights Act of '64, 60 years ago. Harry Truman was president, who was often counted out, but is also known for something else. The story goes, Truman said, if you want a friend in Washington, get a dog. Well, guess what? After the last couple of weeks, I know what he means. But that's why it's so good to have real friends. I'm not being solicitous. I have real friends. So many of you had my back, and I think I've had yours as well. And I will never forget it. Now, there's a couple Delaware folks here still, and one of my best friends, when I was a lifeguard in the projects, he was his nickname is Mouse. Mousy, there you are, pal. End up running longshoreman and loyal as hell. I'm truly honored to be here, to meet at this tense moment in this country, and it is a tense moment. Just a few days after the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, we're grateful he was not seriously injured. We continue to pray for him and his family. It's time for an important conversation in this country. Our politics has gotten too heated. I've said in the Oval Office on Sunday night, as I made clear throughout my presidency, we all have a responsibility to lower the temperature and condemn violence in any form. You've got to remember, in America, we're not enemies, we're friends, we're neighbors, we're fellow Americans. Most importantly, we must fully and firmly reject not only political violence, but violence of any kind, period, no exceptions. We have to say with one voice that violence is not the answer. That's what we should rally around as a nation. That's the unity I'm talking about. Few organizations know that better than the NAACP. For the race riots in Springfield, Illinois in 1908, the NAACP was formed. That's what started it. You know the pain and the price of violence. You understand if you're going to talk about standing against violence, you must stand against all violence. We must stand against violence perpetrated against presidential candidates in Pennsylvania. We must stand against all violence. The violence perpetrated against George Floyd in Minnesota, against black veterans like police officers Eugene Goodman on January 6th, and black election workers like Ruby Freeman and Shane Moss in Atlanta. We have to stand against the violence and intimidation of white supremacy, the murder, innocent lives in that grocery store in Buffalo, New York when I went up there. Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston, South Carolina. We're standing against the violence of murdered children in Sandy Hook and Uvalde. Concert goers in Las Vegas. Innocents on the street all across America that never make the news. There's Uvalde every day in the communities across the country. If you're going to be outspoken on one, don't be silent on others. If we're going to speak about violence, we're going to speak about guns. More children in America die of a gunshot wound than any other reason. That's stunning and that is sick. And it's sheer cowardness if we do nothing about it. So, if you want to stand against violence in America, then join me in getting these weapons of war off the streets of America. An AR-15 was used in the shooting of Donald Trump, just as it was an assault weapon that killed so many others, including children. It's time to outlaw them. I did it once and I will do it again. Now, just because we must lower the temperature in our politics related to violence, it doesn't mean we should stop telling the truth. Who you are, what you've done, what you'll do, that's fair game. As Harry Truman said, I've never given anyone hell. I just told the truth and they thought it was hell. And that's what I'm going to do. Well, here's the truth about why Donald Trump's presidency was hell for black America. He tried to repeal Obamacare to kick millions, I mean millions of black Americans off their health insurance. He had a $2 trillion tax cut that overwhelmingly benefited the super wealthy, the biggest corporations, and exploded the federal debt larger than any one president has in one term. He left no room for us to do what we should be doing. Invest in things that affect people's lives, like child care, elder care, and so much more, that grow the economy and help people. His mismanagement of the pandemic was especially devastating to black communities. Oh, I know, because in other countries, other communities of color. That economic crisis drove up black unemployment, decimated small black businesses, and you peacefully protested George Floyd's murder. Donald Trump called for the National Guard to go after you. What in the hell's the matter with this man? No, I'm serious. Go figure. From a guy who spread the birtherism lie against Barack Obama, saying he wasn't born in America and he wasn't a U.S. citizen. Of course, here's what he thinks of black jobs. I love his phrase, black jobs. It tells a lot about the man and about his character. Folks, I know what a black job is. It's a vice president of the United States. I know what a black job is. The first black president in American history, Barack Obama. I was vice president to Barack, and she is my vice president. I nominated the first black Secretary of Defense in American history. He's doing one hell of a job. I nominated the first black woman to the United States Supreme Court. It matters. It matters. And I promised myself, and I promised America, that my administration would look like America. And I'm proud that we have the most diverse administration in all of history that taps into the full talents of our nation. That's who we are. These guys don't get it. That's why we're so successful. No, I'm serious. That's what makes us the greatest nation on earth. That's not hyperbole. Folks, it's because of you that I'm president and Kamala Harris is vice president. And by the way, she's not only a great vice president, she could be president of the United States. Thank you. With the help of the NAACP, the black elected members in the Congress, we've gotten so much done. Seriously. Presidential historian said we've gotten more done of consequence than any president since Franklin Roosevelt. Just think about where the black community was when I came into office. Think about how far the black community has come. But we still got a long way to go. COVID no longer controls our lives. Our economy is not figuratively, literally, the strongest economy in the world. Historic low black unemployment. Record growth in black small businesses. Let me say this again, because Trump is lying like hell about it. The black unemployment hit a record low under Biden-Harris administration. The first bill I passed would put $1,400 checks plus $300 checks per child, per family, per month in the pockets of people in this country to get them through the pandemic. Not Trump's administration. Kamala and I did that. We put more money in the pockets of than anyone. We cut black, and as a consequence, we cut black child poverty in half. And what we're finally getting through to people, my economic policy grows the economy when we spend money. Grows it. We grew the American economy to the strongest in the world. And I'm determined to make that tax cut permanent. No child should ever go hungry in America. And by the way, all the data shows they can't let them tell us we drive up deficits. They drive up deficits, folks. When you have child care, guess what? Mom or dad can work. And the child can be safe. We're connecting black neighborhoods that were cut off with old highways and disinvestment decades ago. My city, Wilmington, Delaware, I-95 runs up through what used to be the black community, divided it, 6 lanes wide. We're going to make sure that the states want it. We're going to be able to pave over at the top of that and still have the highway. Connecting neighborhoods. We're removing, which is costly, every poisonous lead pipe in a house in America so every child can drink clean water without fear of brain damage. We're delivering high-speed and affordable broadband. No child should have to sit out in the parking lot with their moms in front of a McDonald's so they can get online to do their homework. And because of you, we're not only protecting Obamacare, you allowed me to increase it, making health care more affordable. We're putting, and by the way, more than it's ever been, millions of African Americans now have health care because of what we've done. We're putting home ownership within reach. How do you generate generational wealth, no matter what community you're from? I know how we did it when everything got stuck in Scranton and we no jobs. Moved to Delaware. Dad worked like hell so he could get down payment to buy a small house. That's how you build equity. As small as a 3-bedroom split-level home with 4 kids and a grandpa living with us. But it was a home, and he was able to build some equity. Look, we're making the most significant investment in climate ever in all of history. Including most significant action on environmental justice ever. Look, folks, think about this. My state of Delaware, if you know, not many don't know my state. My state of Delaware has a Delaware River runs up along, it's jagged. But at the top of the state, there's a half moon. And it goes up along more oil refineries on the other side of that half moon, darkest looking area than anywhere in the country, including Houston. And guess what? The wind blows southeast. We had the highest cancer rate for the longest time. But you know who's affected? Fence line communities. You know who the fence line communities are? Black communities. And I promise, as we make this legislation work, we're going to take care of those communities first. First. I mean it. Same way in Louisiana, same way in other places. Look, we've received student debt for more than 4 million borrowers. A significant amount are black borrowers. I don't know how many have called me, say, Mr. President, or God, I've gotten phone numbers, I've called them back. Mr. President, thank you. I couldn't get married. My debt was so large. I couldn't have children. I couldn't think of, no, I'm serious, you know it. I couldn't buy a home. But what you did, you freed me of my debt, and you gave me $10,000 for a down payment in a home. And this project, 2024, Trump's, or 2025, Trump's deal, you know, he talks about education. HBCUs are as good as any other university. Guess what the problem is? Oh, I'm serious. Not a joke. And Kamala and I have a constant fight. She says Howard's the best. I say Delaware State's the best. But that's where I got my start. But my point is this. They don't have the endowment. So what are the jobs of the future? The high-tech jobs of the future. You're going to pay a lot of money. They don't have the money for the laboratories. They don't have the money for all that material. So that's why I've invested a record $16 billion in HBCU. Because no HBCU student is any less qualified than any student anywhere else. And by the way, we're making sure that no one goes to jail for the mere use or possession of marijuana. The record should be expunged. It holds them back. All told, because of you, the NAACP, we're making the most significant investments in black America ever in all of history. We're seeing the results. The racial wealth gap is the lowest it's been in 20 years. Inflation is down in 3 years and coming down further, and we're going to have, as they say, a soft landing. Folks, you're going to see us grow faster and faster. That's not just my view. It's the view of 16 Nobel Prize-winning economists who put out a statement looking at my economic plan and Trump's. They said, my plan will continue to lower inflation, continue to grow the economy. Prices are falling for cars, appliances, and groceries. We're going to keep corporate greed at bay. But here's the thing, what it said about Trump. They said, his policies will cause a recession. No, by the way, these are not a Democratic outfit. 16 Nobel laureates. Look, I come from the corporate state of the world, Delaware. I know how they work. There's more corporations incorporated in my state than any state in America, all combined. But that's what? We have to deal with corporate greed now. No, it is. Corporate profits are double since the pandemic. And they keep bringing prices down. We have to bring prices down further. Look, folks, the idea that corporate-owned housing is able to raise your rent $300-400 a month or something, under what I'm about to announce, they can't raise it more than $55. That debate is taking place. The bottom line is we're just getting started. Well, no, it's not enough to talk about the past. We need a vision for the future. Here's my plan for the first 100 days of the second term. Kamala and I are calling on Congress to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. I did all that I was constantly able to do with executive authority, but we need the act. And we need to pass the Freedom to Vote Act. And I'll sign them both into law immediately. And guess what? Come hell or high water, we're going to restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land. I know you say, Joe, you may not have a Congress. Well, guess what? You all told me I couldn't pass the Inflation Reduction Act. You all told me I couldn't face it. Anyway, we did it with your help. Republicans blocked police reform in Congress. So I signed a historic executive order on police reform. I'm going to come back and we'll sign George Floyd and Policing Act into law, come hell or high water. Not only going to stop MAGA Republicans, going to stop them in their program on 2025. We're going to stop them from cutting Social Security and Medicare. I'm going to expand Social Security and Medicare by making the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. We're going to bring rents down, as I said. We're going to build 2 million affordable homes and cap rent increases of 5% a year so corporate landlords can't gouge. Anyway, I don't want to get going. I'm going to get very upset. But they're just gouging Americans. And we're going to keep relieving student debt. And we're going to end medical debt. We've already made sure medical debt can no longer be put on a credit report. Well, I'm working with states to wipe out medical debt for pennies on the dollar so it's not hanging over you the rest of your life. We're going to raise the federal minimum wage. Our first term, we capped the cost of insulin for seniors at $35. Total drug costs for seniors, beginning in 2024-5, at $2,000 and some of those cancer drugs are $10,000, $12,000, $14,000 a year. But the second term, we're going to do that for not just seniors, for everyone in America. And by the way, not only saves lives, it will save taxpayers, just what I did on the first round on dealing with Medicare. It saves the taxpayer $160 billion because they don't have to pay these exorbitant prices to these, anyway. This year, Medicare is negotiating lower prices for some of the costliest drugs on the market. That threats everything. That treats everything from heart disease to arthritis. In the next term, we want to go further. give Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices for 50 drugs a year, not 10. That not only will save lives, it's estimated to save the taxpayer another $200 billion a year. This is saving taxpayers' money. And by the way, if you notice, all the stuff they said, big spend in Biden, we have lowered the deficit, not raised it. We've increased economic growth. Folks, here's what else I'm determined to do. I'm determined to end Trump's tax cuts for the very wealthy and big corporations and make the tax code fair and ease the burden on working people. I kept my commitment that no one making less than $400,000, I never saw in my life till I got elected president, will pay a penny more in federal taxes. But here's the deal. We have in America, since the pandemic, 1,000 billionaires. 1,000. You know how much in federal tax they pay? 8.2%. That's their federal tax, 8.2%. We're going to make billionaires pay a minimum of 25%, which is low. No billionaire should pay a lower tax rate than a teacher, a firefighter, a nurse, a janitor. That's simply ridiculous. And when we do that, that alone will generate $500 billion in revenue over the next 10 years, allowing us to lower costs for families and save the government money. We can do more on elder care, child care, bringing down the federal deficit, and so much more. This is not rocket science, folks. But they've convinced us that any spending of money is costly. It's saving money. By God's truth, it's saving money. And it's vitally important. You know, the next president of the United States could appoint 2 or more justices to the Supreme Court. Just imagine. I know the stakes. Folks, my vision for the future will continue to be all about working people in this nation. And my whole career, and go back and look at it, I've not been perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but a simple proposition, the family I come from, the neighborhood I come from. Everybody deserves a shot, just a shot, no guarantee. Give hate no safe harbor. Leave no one behind. That's a stark contrast to my predecessor and the mega officials. They'll do everything, undo everything the NAACP stands for. But now they're trying to deny it. They're lying about their Project 2025. They want to deny you freedom, the freedom of the vote, have your vote counted. They'd impose a nationwide ban on abortion. This new vice president, if you ever have any doubt, man, just take a look at what he's been saying. They want to prosecute political enemies. They want to cut Social Security and Medicare, rip away protection from millions of pre-existing conditions, over 400 million people. Stop Medicare from negotiating lower prescription drug prices, risking people's lives, costing the government more money. They'd eliminate the Department of Education. No, you ought to read it, saying it's a state issue. Give me a break, a state. We know how well we did with the states. They would cut school lunches, eliminate the Head Start program for lower-income children. They allow employees to stop paying overtime, employers to stop paying, catch this one, to stop paying overtime to hourly workers. They're such good people. But give the very wealthy and big corporations a new tax cut. They've already eviscerated affirmative action. They'd also decimate diversity, equity, and inclusion all across American life. They're already trying to do it by banning books. They're trying to erase black history. Black history is American history. Folks, I'm not being dramatic here. We cannot let that happen. That's why it's so important to me, it was so important to me, to make Juneteenth a federal holiday. They can't erase it. Now, people are going to know what happened on Juneteenth. That's why I made federal lynching a federal hate crime in Emmett Till's memory, and that's where you've been reminded. Remember what they tried to do? as well as establish national monuments for Mamie and Emmett Till, and so much more. So there's no doubt about what's happening. Look, folks, as I said before, we know black history is American history. It's as simple as that. Let me close with this. I've been young, and now I'm old. Yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken. I have not seen the righteous forsaken. And I will not see the righteous forsaken. Hopefully, with age, I've demonstrated a little bit of wisdom. Here's what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. I know right from wrong. I know how to do this job. And I know the good Lord hasn't brought us this far to leave us now. There's more work to do. This is the moment to be engaged. The work you're doing to recruit hundreds of thousands of volunteers, move millions of people to make their voices heard, may well determine America's future for decades to come. And folks, that's important. We must all be defenders for freedom, justice, equality, and the bedrock of democracy. And there's been no more important voice in that truth than the voices of the black community. I mean it. And when Americans fail to live up to what we say we believe, you don't give up hope, nor do I. We've always loved this country, even when it has not loved us back. We worked hard as hell. Just think about it. Our children, your children, and grandchildren. Ask yourself, what America do you want to leave them? My answer is an America of hope, fairness, opportunity, possibilities. Look, I spent more time with Xi Jinping of China than any other world leader has. I was with him in China on the steps of the mountains. And he looked at me and he said, "Can you define America for me?" I said, "God's truth." I said, "It's recorded." I said, "Yes, in one word, America. Possibilities. Nothing is beyond our capacity. America, where it's full of promises available to everybody. America, where racism and violence are no longer the ghost that have too long haunted the nation. Folks, this is about you and your families and everything the NAACP has stood for generations. Freedom, democracy, America. Always marching, always believing, always keeping the faith. We're going to do this. So let me ask you, are you all in? Because I'm all in. We just have to remember who we are. We are the United States of America, and there's nothing beyond our capacity when we do it together. And let's stay together. God bless you all, and may God protect our truth.
Attention all attendees. Attention all attendees. Please remain for this announcement. First, members of the Resolution Committee, please exit to the Mandalay Ballroom now. Remaining delegates and attendees, we welcome you to the 115th NAACP Convention. Next, we will proceed to the Mandalay Bay Ballroom, where the resolution session will be held. Delegates will enter through the Mandalay Ballroom Door F, marked for delegates. Delegates will sit in the front of the room, near your state sign. Observers, please sit in the back of the room. Lunch will be served to delegates inside the Mandalay Ballroom. You should have received a ticket for your lunch as a part of your convention registration packet. Tickets are non-transferable and non-replaceable. Upon entering the Mandalay Ballroom F door, you will be asked for your ticket provided with a choice of chicken, salmon, or vegan bowl. To receive your lunch bowl, you must provide your lunch ticket to the attendant. You will receive your keypad to vote on resolutions upon entering the Mandalay Ballroom F door. Instructions for using the keypad can be found in your email along with the resolutions packet. The resolution session will begin promptly after lunch and will continue until we have voted on all resolutions. We hope this information is helpful, and we look forward to a productive resolution session. We will dismiss in the following order: Region 1, Region 3, Region 7, Region 2, Region 5, Region 4, and then Region 6. All remaining attendees, please join us in the Mandalay Ballroom. Thank you.